Universities be allowed to bond their own projects without going to the state legislature?
I really don't think so, because if they do that, then they are jeopardizing the bonded rating of Kentucky, even though then there's no single authority that controls it. And I think we could really be headed towards a collision course of too much bonded indebtedness, losing our bond rating, spending more money on interest, where it needs to be some consolidated effort. And I think CPE is a great tool that we have that we're not using.
You made reference very early in this interview to that there are things that we are falling behind on, that Kentucky is not moving fast enough, as you said. What are some of those things, Mr. Harper?
Example would be dropout rate. Because when students drop out of high school, some come back and get GEDs. Many of them we lose to prisons, drugs, other things that are non-productive to society. We have not made any improvement in that in several years. It's not an easy fix, and that goes back to my preschool. I think you have to start early to fix it. But there are things like that we just can't accept in our society, to have non-productive members. Back in the 60s, the construction and military took the dropouts. Now we can't even employ them.
Have you heard this jail issue as you go around? The county governments claim that the jails are breaking them in many cases. Do you have a proposal for that?
Well, my long-term solution, again, is getting the education level up and getting those people employed and part of society, not a cost to society. In the interim, I think we immediately, a lot of the jail costs are juvenile jails. Again, that's where we've got to get business back involved, working with those students and getting them out of the, before they even get to the jail, but getting them when they're on that borderline of becoming productive members or being a cost to society. So it's going to be hard work, but it needs to be done because we're spending way too much money there.
Do you support the death penalty?
I do.
Republicans say that they, several lawmakers, including some Republicans, say they would support a statewide smoking ban instead of having communities do it one by one, as many are doing now. That's kind of the way the seat belts went in the 90s. Would you support a statewide indoor public smoking ban?
I would not. One of the reasons is that I don't think Frankfort should control what happens across the state in terms of being big brother and knowing what's the best answer. I think that should be a local issue, even to the extent of local businesses. They should decide what's best for their business, or the local community, for whatever reason, make that decision. I don't think that ban should come out of Frankfort.
Do you believe Kentucky should be a right-to-work state?
I do, and the reason I think it needs to be right to work is not a labor issue anymore, it's a marketing issue. And I think people don't look at the economic advantage of being right to work. We work in states that are right to work and non-right to work, both in our company. And we don't manage them any different, we don't have any difference in the results of how things are done. But it does make a huge difference in terms of the companies that would look at Kentucky and potentially locate here. So if we look at Oklahoma, which was the last state that passed the right to work law, their economy has dramatically grown since that happened, and we need to look at it too. And I think we work in our own company with organized labor as well as open shop, and it doesn't affect any of that. So if management is past the point where that should be an issue. We're all looking for good quality workers. That's the key. So right to work will not affect labor relations, but it sure can affect the economy.
A Kentucky-only minimum wage proposal is making its way through the State House. Should the state go it alone on minimum wage?
I really don't think so. The federal government is going to have a minimum wage anyway, and to some degree it's pretty much of a moot issue because we can't find employees that will work the minimum wage, and we need to be very careful because a lot of that are high school students or college students that are working their way through school, and the more we raise that wage, the less jobs will be out there for them. Hopefully, if people become educated, they're not going to be employed at minimum wage jobs anyway.
Some issues are coming up as the legislature is meeting, as you know, and that has to be kind of a trick too, because you candidates are out there making proposals and all that, and then maybe the legislature takes it up and that issue disappears or something else pops up. But 70-mile-an-hour speed limit proposed for some of our interstates. Now, you're a race car driver, so I assume 70 is okay with you, is that?
The stats show that there's obviously some risk of increasing at 5 miles an hour. I suspect that most drivers wouldn't really change their speed, their rate of speed anyway. I think it really makes sense, and then we're the same as adjacent states around. So,
how do you look at the proposals to possibly do away with the runoff provision following the May primary? Is that something you think would save the state money and should be done, or do you look at it as changing the rules of the game midway through?
I think long term, there are pluses and minuses of a runoff, but I do think it's like a basketball game. We don't go to halftime and then at halftime change the rules for the second half, and that's what the legislature is looking at doing. I think it's totally wrong. We had rules in place when we all filed. Those rules ought to be adhered to until this election's over. Then we sit down and what is the best solution for the state going forward.
How do you get there from here? With about 3 months to go now until this primary, you have spent a lot of money, done a lot of things, still lagging the polls. How do you win?
We win by getting face-to-face with people now. We've got some, the media has brought us that recognition to where I can walk in a restaurant now and people come up to me. So we're getting people, they're not saying, who is Billy Harper? Now they're starting to say, what are you, what do you stand for? It's important that we spend every day out there selling our message, letting them know who we really are, and that we may not be the best public speaker in the world, but we do bring the best ideas.
My thanks to you for coming. We appreciate it very much. Billy Harper, Republican candidate for governor, our guest today. Thanks again for coming. We'll be back in just a moment with our comment from Reed Polk as you stay here on WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers.